with them, because if those things keep happening, it's very bad.
Well, that's what's so frustrating about a driver. As we watched them push Ribeiro's car by, it was obvious that one of the major problems, they had put a giant hole in one of the radiators.
All right, so there's the Ribeiro story. Now the story is Al Unser Jr.
Hey, Bob.
There he's challenged by Christian Fittipaldi, but he has been slowing down. He was up to 7th place, but now he's fallen back to 12th.
This is not where Al Unser Jr., who has been so dominant here in other years, wants to be at all. And in fact, it's symptomatic of the problems faced by the Penske team, who have not, as anyone knows, done well since the debacle of Indianapolis, where neither car qualified.
Well, Gary Gerald's in the Penske pit. Gary, what's the problems there?
Well, Roger Penske has been huddling with various members of his crew over here on the wall, arms folded in that typical pose. But this tough season for Al Unser Jr. continues. They're chasing one of those electronic gremlins that's causing a problem with the engine department. They haven't identified it just yet. Jr. continues to be on the course, but he has slowed substantially, as you indicated.
We see him here being overtaken, or nearly so, by Emerson Fittipaldi, who's come way up from several positions back. Al Unser, of course, carries that number 1. You see it on the cars. That's because he's still the current reigning champion, but he isn't going to be long.
How many times we've seen those two cars running together like that, 1-2, but basically 1-2 on the racetrack, so it's unusual to see them back in the field.
In fact, it's a Penske battle now for 14th position, if you can believe that. Unser Jr. runs 14th. Fittipaldi 15th. Front of the field, unchallenged. Pulling away is Gil DeFerrin. What a great story for this young rookie. Joins Jim Hall's team, has a rosy future in the Indy cars, and seems to love the ride that he has here.
Many rumors surrounding the Penske team. One of them is that they may exercise their option on Paul Tracy and try to get him back into the team for next year. Another is that Emerson might leave the team, but at this point everything is strictly in the rumor area.
Moving up in the field, the battle for 5th place. Michael Andretti just ahead of Robbie Gordon. As you saw just before that, Al Unser Jr.'s troubles continue. Now, look down here, Lynn St. James, on the right side of the cockpit, lower edge of the frame there. In fact, I think that's just one of those, for want of a better word, a decal holder that's flopped over.
Well, it looks like something's flying the wind, but because of the 2 bolts and the way that is, somehow I think that is something that's supposed to be holding straight up to help hold his head, so that, because we have, you know, a lot of right-hand turns here where his head would be, you know, flopping over there to the right. So I think that that's what it should be, and I can't believe, I mean, that's aerodynamically got to disrupt some air and not be as effective, but I don't think that's supposed to be laying flat like that.
Well, we're going to open the microphone for Robbie Gordon as he makes the move with Michael Andretti.
Exciting, dramatic pass on Michael Andretti by Robbie Gordon.
Nice. Don't let him in, don't let him in. But now you got him. Keep him nice.
And what is he going to say about this, Derek Walker talking to his driver?
Good. Gather her back up again. That's okay, you get him. Just settle down. Doing fine.
All right, here's what just happened as Robbie Gordon got past Michael Andretti, picked up 5th place, and almost immediately got himself in trouble. Way too hot into that corner, would you say, Lynn?
Absolutely. It looks like that is going into turn 3 there, and he just carried way too much speed. Didn't really lose it, didn't spin, but was able to continue on through the grass. But that, you know, those cars are really not designed to do that.
Here's another view. Same thing. Was there contact in this situation? Well, we come back to the front of the field as Jack Villeneuve with Teo Fabi continuing to bite at the back end of his car, and they begin to work their way through traffic.
Fabi there in the red and white car that looks so much like the familiar Penske car combination has knocked on the door over and over throughout this season without managing to succeed, without snaring a win. We've had 7 winners to this point in the season in the 12 races. And he is certainly one of the people who might add to that list of 7.
A tremendously wide 96 feet wide straightaway, which is a runway most of the year. Here's a taxiway, and then on to another runway right alongside the lakefront. In fact, there are all kinds of boats, sailboats, power boats that watch this race from out in the lake, just a few feet off of that back straightaway. Only 2 times in the 13 previous races has the leader of the first lap gone on to win. Just a few seconds ago here at the Burke Lakefront Airport, Paul Tracy, who was running 17th after falling all the way to the back of the field and working his way up through the field, was suddenly into a quick spin and off the circuit, and this time he killed the engine. Here it is, Lynn.
Very close following Cheever, but it doesn't look like Cheever really slowed him down. I don't know, unless the Cheever slowed down and he was carrying more momentum and he spun to avoid rear-ending Cheever. But
another view, Sam.
He lost it before that, so...
You can see he kept the foot in the throttle, tried to snap it around. I'm surprised he stalled it. That was bad luck. He was running 17th at the time. This puts paid to any chance he might have. There's Sullivan, almost the same place. I was going to say that Tracy really has no chance now to win the championship.
So Danny Sullivan, now we can take a look from the onboard. Here's Paul Tracy's car. It doesn't look like Cheever was a factor at all. Just let the back end get around him. Parker Johnstone got an eyeful, didn't he? And he killed it after that. He tried to come forward. Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, we may have determined exactly what happened with Paul Tracy before we get a chance to talk to him. He had just radioed in about a half a lap before that he had developed severe steering problems with the car. Now he has finally gotten a push start back to the pits. They will go to work, the Newman Haas team, to see if they can repair the damage.
Boy, Jack, it doesn't look like it. He's already starting to throw stuff out of the cockpit.
Well, he came in dead stick, and this is it for Paul Tracy.
You know, they talk about his rejoining Penske. One of the great assets that he brings to any team is his testing ability. He's one of the best. You know, in the race, Paul Tracy may make a mistake from time to time, but he's a great tester. Here's
Stefan Johansson. He runs in 14th place. Not in contest anybody to the front. Johansson driving last year at Penske. I think it's interesting that while we talk about the Penske chassis being in trouble this year, and that this was that last year dominant chassis, that in fact Stefan has been able to better this chassis performance from last year every race he's been in.
This team does such a good job, the Tony Bettenhausen team. They just deserve a little luck, which they haven't had. They almost had a podium finish at Portland, got booted from behind by Michael Andretti when they ran out of fuel right on that last lap. Remember that, Paul? That was quite a moment.
Absolutely. You can see, too, from the onboard camera here, they talk, and Lynn, you've raced in the Indy cars on this circuit, how hard it is to identify your apex, your turn-in point, and everything.
Absolutely. Just going there, braking going into turn 3. I mean, all of your brake zones are on the left, but yet you've got to basically look for that right apex.
Let's go down to the pits. Once again, Jack Arute, you have Paul Tracy.
Well, Paul, it was a first lap accident that began the litany of problems. What finally put you out?
Well, I was having a battle. The car was never handling right. From then we bent something on the front, and otherwise the car wasn't handling well, and then I ended up spinning, and you know, we're 5 laps down, so it's really an exercise of nothing, so we just decided to park it and not waste our time.
Tell us your version of what happened, though, on the start.
Well, everybody was supposed to go through 2 abreast, and Andre didn't give me enough room and came across in front of me, so you know, everybody else got through except there wasn't enough room. Andre wanted to go single file, so that was frustrating to have contact before we even got to the green flag.
Paul?
Paul Tracy's 6th DNF of this season. Back on board now, riding on the nose, Stefan Johansson.
You know, as we ride with Stefan, you see the wide open spaces we've been talking about on this airport circuit. Remember that when road racing was revived in the United States after World War II, it was always on the big airport tracks. For example, March Air Force Base or Sebring. And maybe, Paul, what do you think? That should come back a little bit. We have all those tight city courses. This is kind of great stuff where you can pass anywhere.
It's sure great for the crowd. Maybe Meigs Field, Chicago, my hometown.
Hey,
Let's go back to the front of the field, Gil DeFerrin.
Maybe the old Stapleton Airport.
That's a very good idea, isn't it? Now, DeFerrin runs well in the lead right now. He is unchallenged by Jacques Villeneuve. That car that you saw off the edge, that is not Villeneuve. Take a look at how wide this thing is.
And by the way, one of the reasons DeFerrin is doing so well, I believe, I talked to him the other day, is because of the width of the track. Remember, he's a rookie. This is the first time he's run here. And he said he could experiment here in a way that he couldn't on the more confined tracks, and in particular, the ovals. He wasn't afraid of making a mistake, and he did have a spin in practice, but he didn't hit anything, didn't hurt the car at all.
That's Eliseo Salazar, who lines up just behind him. Now you look back. These are all cars that have a lap down, and there is second place, Jacques Villeneuve. But he has, in fact, been whittling off. It went from 8 seconds to now in the 7-second bracket, where Jacques Villeneuve has been closing. And perhaps Jack Root has an update.
Well, Paul, that window, as we said, 30 laps. What the team is going to do is add a little bit of front wing to the car. Now, the way they do that is there are some adjustments on the front of the wing, so when they come on the pit stop, be sure to watch, if you're a viewer, to the front of the car and watch one of the crew members twist those nuts. That's what will give them the downward force on the wing and help the handling.
23 laps now. We're about 7 away. Car over to the fence looks like Christian Fittipaldi. And how did he get there? Boy, that's a strange place to end up.
He'd been running 13th at the time, well back.
That's actually the entrance to the pit lane and well beyond the last corner.
There's a huge bump basically in turn 8A coming out, but I still can't imagine that he had to have cleared that. So whether he had a tire blow or something to put him over there. But I think, you know, there is an access area that he can go back and get off.
He might have just driven to that point after a problem.
We didn't see the...
So that gives him an opportunity to get him off of the course and also flies the yellow flag in that area only. Gilles de Ferran still leads. We'll be back after these messages. Back with the Indy cars in Cleveland. Great battle for second place, Villeneuve and Fittipaldi. In the meantime, Emerson Fittipaldi has scored his 6th DNF of the year, is out of the race, Gary Gerald.
Emerson, what was the problem? I saw a lot of water coming out of the side pod here.
Well, it started leaking water. The water system started leaking. I was feeling the rear tires. I started getting loose the car. The last 5 laps I had to back off, and now we cannot continue, unfortunately. The car was running strong. I was hoping for a good race today.
This is your 25th anniversary this weekend of getting into a racing career, and I know this season is probably as frustrating as any one you've had. Has that been the case? I
think it's very frustrating, but we have to work hard to come back again, and everybody at Marlboro Team Penske are working really hard, and we're looking for the Marlboro, Michigan, the Marlboro 500 Michigan now next weekend.
Thanks, Emerson. Let's go to Jack Root now in Robbie Gordon's pit.
Well, Gary, mixed reports for Team Walker. First, Christian Fittipaldi, when we went to commercial, was having some problems. The report on the radio, an engine problem. In the meantime, his teammate Robbie Gordon came onto pit road, the first of the front runners to pit on lap 25. It looks like, based upon those calculations, he is going to have a gas and go at the end and make it a 3-stop race. No major chassis changes, simply take on the fuel and get back into the war.
And Jack, it was costly for Robbie Gordon, though. He fell down to 12th place on that stop, but of course the consideration is that no one else has stopped, and so he should be able to work his way back to the front once again. Currently running in 4th place, Brian Herta, driving for Chip Ganassi. This is your 4th place car. Ahead is Teo Bobby.
Remember that
Not ahead on the track, by the way, a bit ahead.
Right. Remember that Herta had the pole position.